Sonic Adventure 2. Quite the hard game to complete, isn't it? It has 180 emblems, and you have to get 155 A ranks, the first time in the series they were introduced. All they do is unlock one measly level, but still has a sense of accomplishment. But not many people are able to do it, so that's what I'm here to help you with. This guide will be 8 parts. It will be each story/character getting the A ranks and then the emblems at the end. Today will be Sonic with his 30 missions. As you can tell, Sonic has 6 levels, and every level will have 5 missions each. That is the same true for all characters, but except for varying level numbers. Now let me explain a little bit about how the ranking system works. Every level gives you a point total at the end, except for 2 levels in other videos. These point requirements must be met to reach the A rank. To get all the A ranks, you have to get an A rank in every mission, and then you will get 1 extra emblem for getting all the A ranks in that character's story, along with completing the Hero, Dark, and Last stories. Some things you'll need to know is that certain enemies will give varying points, and hitting multiple enemies in a row without touching the ground will give you extra points at the end. Here I will be giving you a quick guide on how to reach the point/time requirements, while also giving the time requirements that are needed, and help you get good enough so that you can unlock Green Hill and get that sweet satisfaction of 180 emblems. Of course, over the course of all stories and Chow missions. The required upgrade you're going to need are the Bounce Bracelet, Flame Ring, Light Speed Shoes, and Mystic Melody. The first 3 you can get throughout playing the story, so maybe just play through the story before doing this, or maybe use an all upgrades cheat. The Mystic Melody you can find right after this checkpoint in Final Rush. Hit this spring, go along these rails, and then up here you'll be able to grab it. You don't need to beat the stage after getting it, you just need to grab it and it will save your game. First is City Escape, M1. The most important thing here is to hit all 3 ramps at the start. If you don't get at least 1500 points, then you're most likely better off just restarting the level. The point requirement here is 18,000, and I recommend trying to beat this in 2 minutes 50 seconds to 3 minutes. So you get a big enough time bonus, so you get enough points to reach 18,000. Here, if you hop off the ramp and immediately hit this enemy, then you may be able to get 800 points. It's not consistent though, through my testing. Here you want to hit 3 ramps, 1 will give you points, another will give you points in an electric shield, and 1 more will give you an extra 600 points for hitting 3 ramps in a row, and will give you some rings of rings. The only other thing you need to know is that I recommend killing all the enemies and collecting as many rings as you can. Hitting as many combos and this gold beetle up here are mandatory due to gold beetles giving you 1000 points on their own. Also, to beat the level faster, I recommend spin dashing while on the gun chase. Next is M2, which requires you to get 100 rings. Here, I just recommend remembering where the rings are on the boarding section and collect as many as you can until you reach 75 to 79 rings. Once you reach that, the checkpoint will give you 20, and some rings right after the checkpoint will get you to 100 rings and complete the mission. Next is M3, which requires you to reach the Chow in 2 minutes 30 seconds. First, you want to reach the end of the wall run, and then go over to this Mystic Melody location. After this, you just want to go through the springs and pulleys until you reach this pole, you can hop up and grab the Chow. Now, M4 is pretty much just M1, but you have to complete the level in a time limit. Now, the time limits aren't too hard, but should only cause a problem in later stages. City Escape's time limit is 3 minutes, so as long as you can do the previous strategy from N1 in the same time, due to it being the same point requirement, you will be good. M5 is pretty much just a harder version of M1. First, you need to remember that there is an extra ramp, and that one of the ramp locations has changed in the beginning. You want to still get about 2,000 points, due to the extended point requirement of 19,000. Now luckily, there's more enemies in the level that give more points, so it's a lot easier. You just want to kill every enemy in your path, and remember that the gold beetle was moved to where that gun enemy dropped, right before the rail section. If you can do all of that, Next is Metal Harbor, which I would consider the hardest stage in the game to A rank, especially M1. It is a 20,000 point requirement, which I believe is the highest in the game. First, you want to do very specific things. You want to light speed dash this trail of rings, then ride this rail so you can get an extra 600 points. You then want to homing attack both of these enemies, and then light speed dash here. After that, you want to try to homing attack every enemy, the 1-up, and the gold beetle, then light speed dash here. Once you land here, jump immediately, then run left where you can destroy this line of enemies and get another 1-up. Now you just want to continue running through the stage until you reach the missile. Here, you want to get here with at least 6 seconds left and reach the handle. If you have about 11,000 to 10,000 points, you'll be good in about 1 minute and a half. Here and then in this final section, you just want to grind down, grab as many rings as you can, and this 1-up, and reach the goal. If this takes you multiple tries, don't worry, it's pretty hard. M2 is pretty easy as long as you can grab all of the rings that I mentioned to grab before, especially the 20 from the checkpoint, and then, after this pulley, you have to bounce bracelet up to this ring. You can also make it if you go onto the rail and hop up to the ring, but that's harder. M3 is also a very tight timer, where you want to reach this chow in 50 seconds. You just want to run up to where the jets flew by, and then you want to bounce bracelet twice, hop up to this mystic melody, play it as quick as possible, hop up and just to the right of it, double bounce to the platform, then continue jumping across until you reach the chow. The only difference is you must remember for M5 is that there's less enemies in the homing attack chain with the gold beetle. You have to homing attack chain the enemies to get to the missile, and also that any enemies you kill along the way will seem like they give you less points, but will be made up. Also remember that this is an 18,000 point requirement, so it's easier than M1 and M4. The missile works the same, and the very end is the same, so it shouldn't be too hard. Green Forest is up next, and as soon as you reach the first set of enemies, just homing attack them all. If you can bounce bracelet to maintain your chain, and then homing attack them again, then that's good. Then you want to go left here and reach this set of rings. It's very useful for points, and will be useful for M2. The rest of the stage pretty much consists of seeing how many homing attacks you can perform in a row, also hitting this gold beetle. You can hit these rings, and a pretty much easy run to the goal. Just remember that at the end, you need to hit this spring and bounce up. It's weird how you can get these 1,000 points, isn't very consistent for me, but sometimes will be the difference between A rank and B rank, which we do not accept. M2 will take the same route as earlier, except instead of killing the enemies, you want to grab these rings first, then bounce up left. You should be able to complete the level around the checkpoint. Right after the gold beetle, these containers will give you 30, and if not, there's some right above. M3, you just want to get to this area, then you want to hop down to the left, activate the Mystic Melody, double bounce bracelet to this platform, then to this platform, and then just homing attack until you reach the chow. M4 is M1, but you have 4 minutes to complete the level instead of 8, but if you are not completing this in less than 3, then you're probably already bad. M5, some key notes to remember is that the enemies will move a lot faster, so it'll be harder to perform some of your chains. But also remember that at the end, it'll take longer due to not being immediately thrown in an easy area to hit the springs. You'll need to make sure you don't fall. Using the bounce bracelet is useful. For the rest of the level, you just want to remember where the golden enemy is, where it's the same area, and just make sure you don't miss any other enemies. Easy. And one of Pyramid Cave marks the halfway point of our journey. Here, you want to remember that these rings will be very useful in getting points, but also don't take too long trying to pass them. They're very useful though. Here, and near the end of the level, if you are not taking the top bars, then you are losing a lot of time. It's not an automatic fail at the A rank, far from it, but it could still be pretty hard to reach. The main thing you have to remember is to kill the gold beetle, hit the other enemies, and then just try to beat the level as fast as possible. I recommend trying to beat it within 4 minutes, because that's the general time for an A rank. M2 is very easy. You just have to remember to hit this container at the beginning, which gives you 20, and then grab the rest of the rings throughout, and you'll reach it before even the bounce bracelet upgrade. M3 requires you to reach the very end of the stage before the last loop. Activate this, hit the spring, then hit this timer, then make the few bar jumps. I recommend going on the second loop, and each one rolling underneath will get you through. M4 is M1, but you need to make it in 4 minutes, not too hard. M5 is once again like Green Forest M5, where the enemies just move faster, there's bigger ghosts, and the timers are a little bit more strict. If you can get used to all of this, and do the same stuff as M1, you'll be good. Just make sure you know how to make these jumps by jumping on the blocks and throwing the switch. Easy. Crazy Gadget is by far the longest level in the Sonic stages, but all you have to remember is that the enemies are consistent throughout, so hitting them will pretty much get you the points without the time bonus. But also remember that the Gold Beetle will spawn in this little corner, so don't miss it, and don't get hit and then be stunned and miss it. Also, don't be dumb like I used to be and not know how to activate the goal. Just hit this switch, go up, kill the enemy, go back down, and hit the missile. M2 is another one where you just want to collect all the rings and you should be able to make it by this area. If you miss a few, don't worry, as with the rest of these, it's pretty lenient. M3 requires you to go all the way to the end of the level again, to here on the red block, and instead of going forward, you want to go left. Then, once you make your way around this way, and reach the Mystic Melody, wait for the rings to spawn, press the light speed dash, and hold forward towards the block. If you don't, then you'll just fall to your doom. Here, you'll be able to find the Chow and snatch it. M4 is M1, but you have 5 minutes to beat the stage. Still pretty easy. M5 is pretty much easier because there's even more enemies, and as long as you can make these very tight jumps that I recommend waiting and then being able to get a full jump to homing attack, you'll be fine. Just remember that the switch change moves it right here, so you may need to do a loop around like I usually do, but there's probably a faster way to do it. Final stage, Final Rush. Here's what you need to remember. The most important thing is that you kill every enemy and hit these 3 tricks. If you do not, then you won't have the points with this strategy. Each one will give you 1,000 points, which means if you miss all of them, that's a C rank. Pretty brutal. But they're pretty easy. Just make sure you time them a little bit before you get off, and sort of like where they start to go back up again, the rails. Once again, just make sure you don't fall, hit as many enemies as you can, and you should be able to make it if you go fast enough in this long climbing section. M2 requires you to take a weird route where you hit this capsule, hit these rings, you can skip this capsule. If you hit the rings on this rail, you'll have enough for a 5 ring bonus at the checkpoint. Run over to here, hit these 10, bounce up, hit this ring to get these 20, then as long as you keep on going down, hit the final rings, you'll be fine. And if you don't, always remember that once you reach the bottom of the tower, you'll be able to take this rail to the right, where you'll be able to collect a few more rings, go left, and underneath the platform, there's 20 more rings. Easy. M3 requires you to go to the checkpoint, just before your checkpoint, that's just before where you got the Mystic Melody. Pretty confusing, but it's easy. Right here. Make sure you hit the checkpoint in case you fail. Here, you need to activate it, jump on these platforms, and while on this rail, when you're about to lose speed, try to get a straight angle at the rail, do a neutral jump, then jump dash forward. From there, reactivate this Mystic Melody, then carefully platform your way across these rails. Once you make it in here, just hit this enemy, then double bounce right after you destroy it. Don't land, just double bounce immediately after. Then jump up, grab the Chow, and that leaves only 2 missions left. M4 is M1 with the same point requirement. The only thing is that you only got 5 minutes. This is actually the same time limit as Crazy Gadget, but I find it easier to beat. Last A rank, M5. The only thing you need to remember is that the rails are still very important, and that these rails can be very tricky. I recommend trying to neutral jump off of them, so that you can try to jump dash and regain your balance, because if you go too fast and fall off, you're gonna restart. It's not too hard though. So, now you should have, at the very least, all 30 A ranks, which are 30 emblems, along with 1 emblem for completing all of Sonic's missions. Now, this may sound like a lot of work, but I honestly feel like it's one of the easier characters to do, although it's definitely one of the longer ones due to having 6 stages compared to every other character having 4 or 5. I think it's a great way to start practicing at 180 emblems. If you wish to continue, then next will be Shadow, which are the other 4 speed stages in the game. After that, the uploads will take a little bit longer for each one, because for Tails, then Knuckles, and the other evil characters of those, I get worse the further you go. So I recommend practicing in your own time until then. I personally find the Sonic missions to be the easiest, or Shadows. Both speed stages are pretty easy. Although, just remember that this will take a bit of practice, and you will have to know how to at least play the game. And if you want to get started before the next video, all upgrades will be wanted. So, just as a little reminder, have a great day, hope you enjoyed the video. And if my audio sounds bad, it's because I sort of rushed the recordings a bit, but all the information I wanted to convey has been put in, so you should be able to still get them. If you have any problems, just comment down below and tell me what the problem is.